If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Before we get started with today's video, I have an announcement to make. After years of telling other people's stories, I finally released one of my own. My novel Eternal Reign is available now in both ebook and paperback format for those of you who are like me and prefer to collect physical media. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon through the link in the description of this video. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. In Tuliolal, Brook Evu, the owner of a very popular restaurant in the city, has been waiting for the Warrior of Light to come by because he has a job for her, one that is extremely important. His establishment serves anyone, whether they're a native of Tural or not, so sometimes he gets a few weird customers. Normally he doesn't care because he's a businessman, so as long as they don't cause any trouble in his place, he minds the business that pays him. But a group of people recently came by who were a bit more weird than usual. They were in the process of starting up a clearly evil secret society, led by a Vieira woman named Apiahi, and they were obviously new at the whole evil group thing since they chose a very public place to have their meeting, and they were talking so loud that everyone heard them. They call themselves the Passage of the Unbound, and their goal is to spread chaos throughout the world. They're what you'd get if you ordered the Legion of Doom off Temu, but their goal is to become a real threat to the world. To do that, they have to acquire real power, and Apiahi knows how they can do that. There are powerful relics around Tural that in their hands could be used to do some real damage, and right now they're in the hands of the few different tribes scattered around the area. She's heard that each relic contains the power of a Tural Vidral, which are animals with extreme levels of power, similar to the four lords of Kugane. Putting that type of power in anyone's hands would make them a credible threat to the world, and since they plan on stealing the objects and heading to Eorzea to cause problems, Brook Evu thought it might be a good idea to tell people about this little incident, partially because they didn't even order any food before they left. He told the Landsguard, but it turns out that while the Unbound aren't all that good at the whole secret part, they are dangerous. They were not only able to deal with the soldiers that came after them, people from some of the more isolated tribes started showing up claiming that they'd been robbed. Before a more serious hunt could be made for them, the entire group had headed to Eorzea with their prizes. Each tribe has sent someone to recover their stolen goods, but they don't know anything about Eorzea. That's where you come in. They need someone who knows the area and can help them on their mission, and they've been hanging around the restaurant waiting for someone like you to show up. Since each tribesman has their own specialty, they all need someone with a unique skill set to help them deal with the power of their relic. Lord Zenque needs someone who can take a lot of punishment in battle. Nilpine needs someone who has healing magic to counter the diseases that his relic can cause. Shashpia needs someone who can fight up close and give the hunter they sent a chance to put some arrows in their thief. Suhei doesn't know much about her relic other than it's dangerous, so she wants some type of magic user to help her guard against whatever it can do. And lastly, Raho Ja needs someone good at taking things out from a distance, since getting close to his relic isn't all that safe for anyone. Since the Warrior of Light can't help them all at once, she decides to help Shashpia first for no real reason in particular. Her tribe is from the forests of Jacques Tural, which isn't all that surprising since Vieira tend to live in forests. Her people have guarded the Dreamweave cocoon for generations. It's a totem that holds the power of the Tural Vidral known as Swallowtail. Swallowtail could take on the form of any other creature, gaining all of its abilities in the process, and the totem lets whoever holds it do the same. It's like a jump drive loaded with all of the knowledge of every living animal, and the one who has it can instantly download all of that knowledge into themselves and use it. Since people are animals too, they count, which means someone could become a master swordsman or mage in the blink of an eye, complete with that person's face. The tribe has used it to keep their village safe from the many S-rank hunt monsters that wander around the area, by turning into creatures just as strong. But without the cocoon, they won't be able to survive the monster attacks, so they sent their best hunter, Atoka, out to retrieve it. She's never failed on a hunt, but it's been a while since she went to Eorzea, and since they haven't heard anything from her, her people are getting worried. The job may have been too big for her to handle alone, which is why they decided to get help from someone from the other side of the world. They had heard the guy who stole the relic say that he was going to Kugane, so the Warrior of Light heads there to find this hunter. After asking around in one of the taverns, it was pretty easy to find out where a Vieira with a bow from another land, who looks out of place, has been wandering around. When you find her, she looks like the job is getting the best of her, so she's very happy that you've come to help out. From what she's learned, the thief is a middle-aged Huraman, which isn't a lot to go on, but since he can change his appearance at will, what he looks like doesn't matter all that much. However, there have been a lot of weird arguments and fights happening around the city, where the person who started the fight doesn't remember doing it. The weirdest part is that the instigators have been seen in two places at once. Itoka's pretty sure that the thief is using the cocoon to turn into random people and cause a lot of chaos in the city. So all the two of you need to do is wander around the city looking for odd conflicts, and you'll find your thief. When you find him, Itoka has a powder that can cancel out the cocoon's effects. So when you find someone acting weird, she can pelt them in the face with the powder and make them reveal their true identity. If she's lucky, she'll hit the thief. If not, she's going to get arrested for assault. Since that's pretty much the only thing you can do, the two of you head off to start your investigation. If you want to find people who act like they don't have any home training, all you have to do is go to the grocery store, which in Kugane translates to the market in the Rakuza district. The two of you immediately see someone arguing with the shop owner, who is claiming to have already given the guy the money he claims he's owed. He seems to really believe that he's given him the money, but as adamant as the other guy is about having never received it, Itoka starts to think that he's the thief trying to start a fight, so she pegs him with the dust and nothing happens, but he gets more pissed. It turns out the shopkeeper had made a mistake with his notes, and he did owe the man more money, so to avoid getting yourselves in trouble by sticking around, you move on to pick up your search somewhere else. That leads you straight into the heart of a conflict between two samurai, who are right on the verge of killing each other, all because one of the men's wives is claiming the other guy copped a feel when she walked by. The other samurai has no idea why she picked him to lie on, but if her husband won't see reason, he's not gonna just let himself get killed. The woman seems way too happy about this, like the fight is what she was trying to start, so Itoka hits her with the powder and she turns into a Huraman, which stops the fight before it starts. The thief doesn't stick around now that he's been outed. He turns into a bird and flies off. Itoka tries to shoot him out of the sky, but she misses, so your hunt for the relic isn't over yet. The samurai's actual wife had been knocked out and left in an alley, but the Sekisegumi found her, so she's fine. Now that they know that there's a shape-shifting crazy man on the loose in the area, they'll be working to hunt him down too, so that should help the hunt go a little bit smoother, but not much. Judging by the direction the shape-shifting thief was flying in, it seems like he decided to start causing problems outside of the city itself, somewhere in the direction of the Ruby Sea. There are a lot of settlements out there, so the two of you head to the Ruby Price to see if any of the soldiers have seen anyone acting strange. It turns out that one of the Confederacy ships had gotten really close to the Ruby Price without permission, and the guy on board had started insulting the soldiers so they would attack him. When they ignored the lone idiot, he left, but he did put the soldiers on edge. If any more Confederacy ships show up, they've already decided to sink them, which will likely lead to a war with the pirates. Itoka's pretty sure that your target has infiltrated the Confederacy to break their agreement with Kugane and start a full-scale war. But since you don't exactly have proof, telling the soldiers that you think a guy using a magic paperweight to steal people's identities is trying to make them go to war really won't do anything to make the soldiers less jumpy. Because of that little detail, you need to go and find out if your hunch is right. Fortunately, the Warrior of Light is on good terms with the pirates, so the two of you swim over to Sakazuki to chat with them. It doesn't take long to find out that none of their people would go to the Ruby Price without permission, but what they have seen is Rasho, one of their top-ranking men, has been acting weird. He's ordered a group of pirates to meet him on the Isle of Beko because they're about to attack the Ruby Price. Rasho wouldn't do that, which means it's clearly not him, so the Warrior of Light and Itoka go to stop him before he causes real problems. He's almost got some of the pirates ready to attack by the time you show up, but once Itoka messes up his disguise, that plan gets ruined. She wants to know why he's doing what he's doing, which is a question she should have asked after she shot him, but instead of putting an arrow in him while he's running his mouth, the two of you let him talk. Unlike the other members of the Unbound, he doesn't have any big world domination plans. He just wants to watch the world burn. He turns into a bird and flies off again, which is when Itoka tries to shoot him. She misses again, which makes the Warrior of Light wonder just how unskilled are the rest of the hunters from her tribe, since she's supposedly the best. The thief may have gotten away again, but since the Confederacy knows about him now, they'll be joining in on the hunt. With nothing else to do, the two of you head back to Kugane and try and guess where the thief will appear next. The Confederacy's information network has long reach, so it doesn't take long for them to find out something useful. A man recently got found out trying to impersonate Lord Hien of Doma. Yugiri saw through his disguise immediately while he was trying to cause some problems in the Doman Enclave, so the guy turned into a bird and flew away. That's definitely your guy, so the two of you head off to Doma to see if you can find him. It's pretty easy to find out where the thief is this time because he's apparently at the House of the Fierce wearing the Warrior of Light's face. He's trying to get the people to turn against the Khan of the Azim Steppe by claiming they're planning on invading Doma, but no one believes him since the Warrior of Light is so connected in both the Azim Steppe and Doma that if a conflict was gonna start, she could just tell them to stop and they would. The disguise is seen through even before Itoka hits the fake you with the illusion stopping powder. When the man's disguise fails, one of the shinobi recognizes him, but he turns into a bird again and flies off. Itoka tries to shoot him yet again, but her aim is so far off the mark that the thief turns back and taunts her by revealing something that makes a few things start to seem a bit more clear. She's not Itoka. She can't be, since the thief killed her the last time they fought. When he realizes that you didn't know that she wasn't Itoka, he laughs, since whoever this girl is, she's been doing the same thing that she's hunting him for, pretending to be someone else. But while they're both pretending to be different people, what they're doing isn't even similar, and once he leaves, the fake Itoka promises to explain after you let the Domas know what's going on. Even though he got away again, this little encounter turns out pretty good, since one of the shinobi knew the man. His name is Samadare. He was trained as a shinobi from a young age, and he fought to defend Doma from the Garleans 25 years ago. During the fight, an auspice named Tamano Gozen even joined in to help, but they still lost. Samadare was conscripted into the Garleans' army and forced to become an imperial spy. He did a lot of damage during his service, since he was really good at sneaking around and causing trouble, and he didn't get free of them until the prisoner exchange that the Warrior of Light helped carry out. When Samadare got back, he was different. He wasn't interested in protecting Doma anymore, and he started working to destroy it, since he realized from his time spying on different nations that they're all equally corrupt. Some of them just hide it better. The shinobi tried to capture him, but he left Doma before they could. They found a letter from the Unbound trying to recruit him, which is how he ended up in the meeting that started this little adventure. The Unbound may not be the best at keeping their secret society a secret, but they do seem to be good at recruiting dangerous people. Knowing who Samadare is doesn't make it any easier to track him down, so the two of you head back to Kugane. When you get there, the woman you thought was Itoka lets you know that her actual name is Quickie. She is a hunter, but no one would say she was good, since she can barely shoot straight enough to hit the ground. To make matters worse, it was her fault that the Dreamweave cocoon got stolen. The relic was kept in the deepest part of their village, where stealing it was pretty much impossible, and only Itoka was allowed to use it to protect their village. Quickie got tired of sucking at being a hunter, so she took the relic and turned herself into Itoka just so she could see what it felt like to be talented. When she was coming back to the village, Samadare pretended to be hurt, so she went to help him out. When she got close, he knocked her unconscious and stole the relic. The village elder forgave her for her massive screw-up, but she couldn't forgive herself, so she went to Kugane to try and help get it back. She ran into Itoka after a few days, and the woman let Quickie join her hunt. She got killed a few days before you showed up. She thought you wouldn't help her once you knew the truth, but the Warrior of Light had already guessed that something was off, since the woman was too bad of a shot to be labeled the best at anything. But with the truth finally revealed, the two of you continue to hunt Samadare before he finally succeeds at destroying Doma. Not long after Samadare tried to impersonate the Warrior of Light, the shinobi who had recognized him comes to you and Quickie and Kugane to let you know that he got in contact with his old friend. He told him that he wanted to join him on his mission, and Samadare was happy to set up a meeting with him out in Hell's Lid. The shinobi had originally planned on setting a trap for Samadare, but since he doesn't know the full power of the artifact that he's carrying around, he thought it better to tell you, since you were already hunting the guy. Quickie is eager to go and catch the thief, but the shinobi, who like everyone else in Doma is well aware of how good of a fighter the Warrior of Light is, thinks that her being there will do more harm than good, so it'll be better if the two of them lag a little bit behind, then take a boat to Hell's Lid after you've done your usual stabby thing. It's not a bad idea, so you head off to do your thing. When you get to the island, the only thing you find are some red Kojin who attack you and get put out of their misery for their trouble. Quickie shows up right after hearing the sounds of battle, but when you tell her that Samadare was never there, she figures it was a trap until something catches her eye. She points it out to the Warrior of Light, and when you go to look at it, she goes to stab you in the back. The only thing that saves you from the single most intelligent way to off someone as powerful as you are is the real Quickie sprinting in and tackling her doppelganger. Samadare knows from what he's heard about you that no regular creature he turns into can match you in combat, so he flies away to plan a better way to kill you. Turns out Samadare had turned into his old shinobi friend to set up this whole little ambush, and when he and Quickie had made it to open water, he had pushed her in. She may be a bad hunter, but she's a great swimmer, so she made it to the island just in time. She's glad that she did, because Samadare had used that same trick of turning into her to kill Itoka, and she didn't want that to happen again. Just in case the thief had set up another trap, the two of you head back to Kugane, where Quickie realizes that the two of you have another problem. When Samadare pushed her into the water, the powder that she was using to shut down his disguise was ruined. She needs to mix a new batch, but it's unlikely that you'll find the ingredients so far from Taral. But the two of you head to the markets to check anyway. Unfortunately, the shops don't get materials from the New World, a fact that needs to be changed, so you'll have to find another way to deal with Samadare. Even though you couldn't buy what you need, the trip's not a total waste of time, because Quickie finds out about this incredible bit of technology called eyeglasses. She had always thought people wore them for decoration. She had no idea that they actually fix people's eyesight. She wants to get a pair because she's had a hard time seeing anything far away since she was little. Being nearsighted would make being an archer impossible, even though Itoka taught her how to shoot. To test out the theory, you go to a shop to get her a pair, and after the crafter forces you to get the materials yourself, he makes her a pair of glasses, and not only do they make her aim better, it turns out that she's almost a perfect shot. So the next time you find Samadare, she'll be able to help you deal with him. When you get back settled in, Serena is there, and she has some important information about your target. After you make sure she's really her and not an imposter by asking her something that only she would know, she tells you about something a little weird that happened. A few days ago, the Warrior of Light came to Mo Ilo and said that Hien had gone crazy and was getting an army together to attack the Azim Steppe. The Domans had already told them about the guy pretending to be different people and trying to cause chaos, so they immediately figured out that it wasn't you. They tried to catch him, but he turned into a sheep and got away. She told the people in Doma about it, and they let her know where you were so she could let you know. Since he was last seen in the steppe, you and Quickie head to Reunion to see if he's still hanging around, while Serena goes to let the other tribes know to be on the lookout. No one's been trying to spark up any trouble, but people have heard that Magni has been acting weird and sneaking out of the Dawn Throne. Quickie heard that someone had seen Magni heading to Bardom's Meadow not that long ago, so the two of you head out there to talk to him. When you get there, you see something that is so obviously impossible that Magni would have known that it wasn't real if he wasn't a complete idiot. Sato is in the middle of confessing her love for Magni while also claiming that she's being forced to marry Hien, all because he wants to expand his control into the Azim Steppe. The story is stupid, but Magni believes her. To keep Hien from marrying Sadu and taking over the steppe, he's willing to gather an army, attack Doma, kill Hien, and marry Sadu himself. The only thing that stops him from doing something stupid is when the fake Sadu tells him to kill you. When he refuses, she bashes him in the head, knocking him unconscious before turning back into Samadare. Normally, he would try to sneak attack you and Quickie instead of fighting you head on. But since that didn't work, he's decided to use the greatest warriors he knows to beat you. And he starts the fight off by turning into Itoka. Had he really understood just how strong the Warrior of Light really was, he would have turned into you. While Itoka was strong, she's nowhere near powerful enough to match the Warrior of Light, so Samadare turns into the most powerful creature that he's ever seen, the Auspice Tamamu Gozen. He's not the first Auspice that you fought, and much to his surprise, he loses. He turns into a bird and tries to fly away, but this time Quickie shoots him out of the sky. He doesn't die because fall damage doesn't exist in this world, but considering the fact that he gets taken into custody by Magni, he will probably wish he were dead. But none of that matters since you finally retrieve the relic. Quickie is happy that it's over, but she knows that her people won't be happy to see her come back instead of Itoka. Regardless, the two of you head back to Tuliolal to return the artifact to Shashpia and let her know that the mission was a success. The Viera is shocked to see Quickie, since after she had run off and they couldn't find her, they had thought she'd taken herself out. While it's sad that Itoka is gone, Shashpia is absolutely certain that not only will no one blame Quickie for what happened, they all want her to come back home, and the fact that she was able to retrieve the relic with more than a little help from the Warrior of Light proves that she's the farthest thing from a failure. She may even be fit to take Itoka's place as the village's protector, a job that she's more than happy to accept, since it means that she'll be following in her mentor's footsteps. Suhei is excited to see that the Warrior of Light knows her way around the magical side of things, because she really needs someone who can use those skills to figure out what her people's stolen relic can actually do. They've guarded the thing for generations, but they don't know all that much about it. In the old days, the forests around her homeland were full of very dangerous, terrifying monsters. To keep the people safe, their mages spent a lot of time studying the relic known as the Perch of the Apex, until they learned how to use it. With its powers, they were able to force the monsters out of the forest, which turned it into a much less horrifying place to live. Since the danger was gone, the elders from that time forbade the people from using the treasure again, and they locked it away. Over time, her people simply forgot what the treasure could do. They were at peace, so it didn't really matter all that much, until one of the members of the Passage of the Unbound showed up. He made friends with her people, then sucker punched her husband who guarded the relic, stole it, and left. He's been unconscious for days, so his daughter Tepiki left to track down the man who stole the relic. Unlike her father, she's not exactly magically inclined, so she prefers to stab things. Suhei wants you to go back her up, because she'll definitely need the help. The Warrior of Light is more than happy to help, so she lets you know where her daughter went. The thief had said something about changing Razat Han, so that's where you go to find Tepiki so you can track down the thief before he causes some dragon-sized problems. Tepiki figured that her mother would send someone to help her, and since she knows her mother, she's pretty sure the woman's already filled you in, which means she doesn't have to waste time doing it. She doesn't know much more about the relic than her mother did. She just knows that the soul of an owl-type Taral Vidral was sealed inside of it, and the stories say that the person who uses its power will be showered in good fortune, while causing pain and suffering to everyone around him, which makes me wonder why they didn't just destroy the thing if they wanted to keep people from using it. Tepiki had only been around the thief for a little while, but he made it known that he wanted to bring change to Razat Han, which is why she decided to hunt for him there. She figured she would get a hint about the guy's location by trying to find people who are openly unhappy about the way things in the city are run, since those kinds of people are more likely to join someone who's trying to cause chaos. She was right, because her hunt had her find out that the thief had proclaimed himself the savior of Razat Han, and he's been going around calling himself the Justiciar. He's been hunting monsters around Thavnir while proclaiming to the people that he's the only one who cares enough about them to keep them safe. He's gotten a lot of people interested enough to watch him head out into the jungle to hunt things, but they haven't really started taking him all that seriously. Tepiki understands that the guy might not be her thief at all and is really just some adventurer trying to make a name for himself, but she doesn't have any other leads, so she wants to look into this guy. From what she's heard, he gives speeches out in the smaller settlements around Thavnir, so the two of you head out there to start your hunt. Since the Justiciar is trying to get attention, it doesn't take long to find a kid who saw him not that long ago. He gave a speech about saving people from nearby danger, then went off to fight it alone. Since the Radiant hosts spend a lot of effort trying to keep the people of Thavnir safe, one of them followed the guy so it won't be all that hard to find his trail. You don't find the Justiciar himself, but you do find an unconscious member of the Radiant host and a very dead plant creature, all surrounded by some not very small rocks. The soldier wakes up when you get there, and he lets you know that he did catch up to the Justiciar right when he was getting ready to fight the monster. He acted like the thing was super dangerous, but the creature wouldn't really be a threat to anyone who's used a weapon before. So the soldier was going to deal with it himself, but the Justiciar pulled out a weird relic. The soldier was kind of curious to see what the thing would do, but when it activated, rocks fell out of the sky and hit him and the creature in the head. Since the Justiciar wasn't laid out next to him when he woke, he figures that the guy must have not been hit. That proves to Tepiki that the Justiciar is her thief, so she knows she's on the right track. After making sure that the soldier gets back to his barracks without passing out, since getting hit in the head can cause some lasting damage, the two of you get started on figuring out what to do next. The one constant in all of the legends about the Perch relic was that the person who used it would avoid getting hurt while injuring everyone around him. So the Justiciar might have both been protected from and caused the rocks to fall. While you're talking, a kid runs up telling you that the Justiciar had come back not long after you left, claiming that he'd taken down a monster that had knocked out a Radiant. He was laughing about it despite the fact that he had just left a Radiant out where he could have gotten eaten by anything. The local kids aren't worried about that part. They just think it's cool that this guy might be stronger than members of the Radiant host. The kids think the guy is cool. Their parents not so much. And Tepiki thinks the whole situation is strange. Outside of stealing the relic in the first place, the Justiciar isn't really doing anything all that evil with it, which doesn't fit what she's heard about the passage of the Unbound. That doesn't change the fact that she has to get the relic back, but if the guy starts being looked at as some type of hero, that will make her job a lot harder since beating up people's favorite celebrity is something that is frowned upon. That won't make Tepiki hesitate to put a sword through the guy though, since her father was responsible for guarding the relic, and now that it's been stolen, the people aren't all that happy with him. While the two of you are hunting for the man, more and more rumors of him killing monsters start to spread, and even though the things he's fighting aren't anything to write home about, more and more young people are starting to idolize him. The main thing he seems to be working toward is making people turn against the Radiant host by claiming that they aren't working hard enough to keep the people safe, which is why he had to step up and do the job. Since kids are easily influenced, it's actually working. That means tracking him down before he can cause children to start causing problems in the city is a top priority. So the two of you start asking around in Razat Han to see if anyone knows where he is. The Radiants have started hunting for him more seriously than they had been before, so they're more than happy to help with your investigation. After Tepiki tells the alchemist about the incident, they make her a powder that should let you detect magic that's been used in an area. That way you'll be able to follow the trail of the stolen relic's powers. It'll only work for someone who can use magic, and since Tepiki has 0 skills in that area, that job falls to you. She did memorize all of the different spots where people claim to have seen the Justiciar, so the two of you head to the most recent area out in the Perfume Rise to see if the powder works the way that it's supposed to. There's another fallen rock in the area, and after using the powder on the rock, the Warrior of Light can see that magic was used on it, so the rock that had knocked the Radiant unconscious was summoned out of thin air. One of the perks of the Apex's abilities is to apparently make it rain boulders. Considering the fact that the Justiciar barely knows how to use the relic, he's obviously not tapping into any of its real abilities, because there's no way the only thing such a supposedly dangerous relic can do is give people concussions. A Radiant comes running up to the two of you while you're discussing it, and he's looking for a little girl who ran off by herself to join the Justiciar. Her mother is worried since there are a lot of things around the area that can eat her, so you pause your hunt to track down the little girl. You find her while she's on the verge of becoming walrus food. Fortunately for her, you keep her from getting eaten, and Topeki lets her know that she shouldn't be following the Justiciar since he's a thief. But the girl still thinks he's a hero regardless. Nearly getting eaten did scare her enough to make her not want to be out and about anymore on her own, so you take her back home and get back to the hunt. Once you get the girl home safe and sound, Topeki lets you know why she seems to have just a bit more hatred than necessary for the Justiciar. That's because she's the reason he even knew where the relic was in the first place. He had showed up in their village pretending to be a merchant, and he had asked a lot of questions about the perch. She hadn't thought him being interested was all that odd, so she told him everything about it, including the fact that her father was the one guarding it and where, because giving out sensitive information to strangers is always a smart thing to do. She knows he's a bad guy, so having people think he's anything more than a conniving scoundrel is very annoying to her, especially since aside from robbing her people, she still can't prove that he's evil. He still hasn't slowed down with his monster slaying, which has even more people praising him around Thavnir, but there is something odd. He only seems to be fighting seedkin, never any other type of wild beast. It's even weirder how he always just so happens to have people around to save when these creatures pop up. Not once have these seedkin attacked someone without him being there, which makes Topeki wonder if he's bringing the creatures out himself, then saving people by dealing with the monsters that he let loose. That thought has been floating around with some of the members of the Radiant host too, so it's definitely worth investigating. So the two of you head to a place called Giant's Gall Grounds, an area where quite a few of these attacks have happened. That way you can either find one of the creatures or catch the Justiciar in action so you can end this little hunt once and for all. The Warrior of Light and Topeki don't run into the Justiciar, but they do manage to capture one of the plant creatures that he's always fighting. Instead of finishing it off, the two of you take it over to the alchemist at the Great Work so they can examine the thing. It doesn't take long for them to discover that the thing isn't exactly your run-of-the-mill plant creature. Somebody had used some chemicals to make it grow really fast. Those chemicals also make the creatures a lot more violent to the point where all thoughts of self-preservation are thrown out of the window. The specific ingredients that are needed to make this plant version of HGH cost way more money than the average person has. So the Justiciar, if he's the one who's creating these creatures, must be very, very rich. Someone with that type of money probably wouldn't go out to gather the ingredients themselves, which means talking to some merchants who have close ties to the alchemist might be your best bet. That works out better than either of you could have hoped for, because one of the merchants turns out to be the guy's father, something he reveals when he accidentally calls the Justiciar by his real name, Virazon. Virazon stole the materials to make the plant growth potion and the maps that have helped him learn the area around Thavnir from his father, and he's been using those to create his fake hero persona. The man had always fantasized about being a hero from the time he was a little kid, so since he was interested, his father had paid a lot to have him train with a bow and arrow so he'd have the skills needed to try and make his dream a reality. He got pretty good, but he wasn't exactly the hard-working type, so he never put in the effort to become anything special. He tried to skip the steps and sought to buy fancy equipment and potions and stuff to make him look like a big-time adventurer, which annoyed his dad to the point where he gave his son some money and kicked him out of his house. He hadn't seen him for years after that, not until he showed up to his house calling himself the Justiciar. He said his heroic deeds during their time apart had caught the attention of the Passage of the Unbound, and they had helped him get enough power to outdo all of the heroes of the world in exchange for his money. They obviously let him join just to pay their bills, because Virazon is clearly a moron. But after you tell his father who the Unbound actually are, he decides to tell the Radiant host what he knows if it will help stop his son. Once the truth about who the Justiciar really is starts to spread, his popularity starts to drop, but not by much, since facts never really matter much to fanatics. He's recently been seen handing out letters to some of his supporters. Whatever the letters are, they probably say something that you should know, so the Warrior of Light and Topeki head to Razad Han to see if they can get their hands on one of those letters. It turns out that he's been trying to get his most devoted followers to meet him somewhere, and it also turns out that the person who knows where he is the same guy who sold Estinian a map after the final days came to an end. He's still doing shady business, which is good for you, since he recently had a guy come by who was looking for a map into Uznair. The merchant sold him every map that he owned, saying that he didn't know which one would lead him where he wanted to go, but he knew that he had the map that he actually needed. He figures Virazon found the one he wanted, since the letters he's been handing out have a copy of the map on them. There will probably be a few not-so-savory types crashing the meeting though, since the merchant has heard that some of the bandits in the area don't like the Justiciar all that much. His escapades have interrupted a few of their thieving operations, so they've been looking for an opportunity to get rid of the guy. The merchant doesn't know the exact spot where the meeting's supposed to be, but it is somewhere out in the Shroud of Samga, so you go to let Topeki know, and the two of you head out there. There are quite a few people heading to this secret meeting, so it's not exactly hard for you to follow one of them to the right place. The meeting clearly went poorly, because when you get there, most of the people are either scared or injured, and some really big rocks are laying around Virazon. He recognizes the Warrior of Light because there aren't many people in the world who don't, but for some reason he expected you to be nicer to him despite the fact that you're traveling around with one of the people he robbed. The guy's an idiot, and once Topeki reveals his real name, he decides to stop hiding his face, since it will make it easier for him to get famous if people know what he looks like. He hadn't actually attacked the people who had come to the meeting on purpose. Some of them who had shown up weren't actually his supporters. They had attacked him and the artifact had responded. A lot of power starts to flow into Virazon when the Warrior of Light gets ready to attack him, and before she can, a lot of rocks fall, separating the man from you. He does want to fight the Warrior of Light, which is more proof that he's an idiot, but he wants to do it in a better location, so he takes off, leaving his supporters behind. Once he's gone, they let you know exactly what happened when the meeting had started. Virazon had done his usual speech about being the hero of Thavnir before he got to the topic of how angry he was about all of the rumors that were being spread about him. He had called the meeting so he could get everyone there to head out and start working on fixing his reputation. That was around the time where two of the people who had snuck into the meeting to hurt him attacked. When they did, the rocks started falling on them and everyone else in the room. They had fallen right up until the Warrior of Light and Topeki had shown up. While Virazon did attack everyone in the room, he hadn't started the fight, so he wasn't exactly doing anything wrong. The people who tried to kill him, however, did, so Topeki gives them the option of turning themselves into the Radiant Host or fighting her and the Warrior of Light. Most people would choose jail time over having their soul and body separated, so they turn themselves in while everyone else heads off to get medical attention. One thing Topeki did notice was the size of the rocks that Virazon had summoned this time around. They were way bigger than the other ones, which could mean he's learning to control his powers better or something else has happened. After the meeting incident, no one sees any signs of Virazon, but Topeki does get a bit of good news. Her mother sent her a letter saying that her dad's awake and he's made it to Tuliolal. She would go to see him, but she's about to go out with the Radiant Host to hunt for Virazon, so she wants you to go and talk to her father and see if he knows anything about the Perch's power, since he is the one person who spent the most time with it. Suhei isn't surprised to see that you came back to Taral alone, since her daughter isn't the type to get sidetracked once she has something she's focused on. And while her husband Netsi had been in the city, he didn't stay long since he's eager to help his daughter in any way that he can. He's gone off to the forest to try and find some info on how the Perch works, so once his wife points you in the right direction, you go to check on him. You find the man while he's facing a very large owl. The thing hadn't attacked him yet, so you deal with it before it gets the chance to, since Netsi clearly hasn't fully recovered from his injuries. He's heard word about what you and Topeki have been dealing with, and even though he was the guardian of the Perch, he hadn't known about its abilities, so he started trying to learn more about the creature that was sealed inside of it. It had started out as an owl before it ascended, and the creatures tend to keep some traits from their original form, so he figured trading a few punches with the owls would teach him something about the Perch. None of the owls can summon rocks though, so that was clearly a talent that it got after it transformed. What he did notice is that the owls never attacked first. They only get aggressive when something threatens them, but the minute it gets scared, it gets very violent, and the more scared it gets, the more ferocious its attacks are, which could explain why Virazon is able to use the Perch without any effort. The thing turns on when something threatens him, and it stays on until he's out of harm's way. That will make him hard to beat even by someone as strong as the Warrior of Light, because the stronger his opponent, the more afraid he will be, which could cause the relic to pull an entire mountain down around him. According to the story of how the creature inside of the relic was beaten, the thing wasn't killed by any hunter. It got so afraid that its powers went out of control and it killed itself on accident. That could happen to Virazon, which I'm pretty sure no one would lose any sleep over, except for the fact that he might bring down the entire city of Razad Han with him, which is a bit of a bigger problem. So you head back to the city to let Topeki know what you learned. Before you get the chance to tell her anything, Virazon shows up in the city and proves just how out of touch he is by claiming that he's going to become the king of Razad-Han because he thinks he'll make a better leader than Vritra. Absolutely no one, not even his own father, thinks that makes sense, and the Radiant Host thinks that this would be the perfect time to lock the guy up, right up until boulders start falling out of the sky. Not wanting to cause a fight in a place where the death toll would be catastrophic, everyone lets Virazon leave. The fact that he didn't seem worried in the least despite being surrounded by enemies proves to the Warrior of Light that he does understand the relic's powers. Once you explain to Topeki what her father figured out, she finally understands why Virazon would be so eager to fight the Warrior of Light when he knows he has absolutely zero chance of winning. Being the target of one of the strongest people on the planet should let him draw out the full power of the relic. But since he doesn't know how the creature inside of it ended up offing itself, Topeki thinks that giving him the fight he wants is the best way to put an end to this whole thing, as long as it happens far away from people. Topeki gets the Radiant Host to help find a battlefield that will keep innocent people out of harm's way, and it doesn't take too much effort to get Virazon to come out there. He seems extremely confident right up until the fighting starts. Then he realizes that while he calculated his odds of winning, it turns out that he was really bad at math. He gets so scared that the relic overloads and starts to go out of control. So he tries to run away and gets knocked unconscious by a rock that should have killed him. Without the relic, he's absolutely no threat to anyone, but that doesn't stop the Radiant Host from locking him up while you and Topeki head back to Tuliolal. Her parents are happy to see her back home, but while they want to lock the relic away like they did in the past, she thinks it'll be better if people knew what the relic was capable of and learn how to use it properly just in case they need it. Her father thinks that might lead to one of their own people deciding to steal the thing for their own purposes, but Topeki is pretty sure that telling people how that ended for Virazon will be enough of a deterrent. After a while, her father starts to think that it's not a bad idea, and Topeki will be the perfect person to get the process started since she's now the one person who knows more about the relic than anyone else. This concludes the story of Dawntrail's Caster role quest. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, comment, share it, and subscribe. Grab a copy of my novel on your way out, and I'll see you all next time.